So let's continue with what we have discussed yesterday. So yesterday we saw about computer assisted learning and its different types. So let's see the process of CAL. Whenever you prepare a computer assisted learning, initially you have to choose a relevant topic that is apt for preparing a computer assisted learning module. So while preparing the module, you have to be very clear about the cognitive level of students aimed by the module. That is, what do you expect from the students to achieve from that particular module? Decide the module to be used. So that means the type of CAL that is to be used. Develop the sequence in the form of frames. So whenever we prepare a module, we prepare certain frames through which the module will be proceeding. So initially we have the introductory frame to give directions to the learners. So we have the instructions part where we give instructions to the students on how to proceed with the module. So that is known as the introductory frame. So the next is learning frame, which presents a matter to be learned. So after explaining the aims and objectives as well as the cognitive level that is expected out of students, we give the content to them, which is known as the learning frame. And then we have the test frame that tests the learners and provide feedback. So at the end of the learning frame, we'll be giving we will be evaluating the students on how much they have acquired from that particular learning frame. So that is the last sequence, which is test frame. So the different sequences are introductory frame where we give directions to the learners, learning frame where we present the material to be learned, and the test frame where the students are evaluated in order to get a feedback. After preparing the frames, you have to pre-validate by sharing them with peers and students to get feedback. So once the module is prepared, before administering the module, you have to pre-validate it. It can be done by giving it to experts, giving it to peers as well as students in order to get the feedback. Once the feedback is being available, make relevant corrections according to the feedback from the stakeholders. A written computer assisted module is converted to a computer program. So initially the thing was in a written form and then we convert it into a computer program. Do post validation of the CAL program and make corrections. So once the computer program is on, you have to do a post validation and again according to the feedback make corrections. Once all this is done, you can release the CAL unit for learners to use and learn. So this is about the overall purpose of CAL. Initially you have to choose a relevant topic, decide the cognitive level of the student to be achieved, decide which module is to be used, prepare the sequence as the introductory frame, the learning frame and the test frame. Then pre-validation is done. After the pre-validation, make corrections. Then the written CAL module is converted into a computer program. Once the computer program is prepared, do the post validation and make corrections. Once all this is done, you can release the CAL unit for use. So this is the overall process. Now let's see the limitations of CAL. The limitations are, it is only effective for developing cognitive domain and problem solving skills. So as you all know, CAL it has nothing to do with psychomotor skills. So it is all about acquiring knowledge or acquiring problem solving abilities. Only topics that are well structured and logical suits this method. So the topic that should be very precise, or it should be clear cut. It should be well structured and then only we can use it in a CAL, while abstract or complicated components cannot be used for preparing a CAL. Program development is quite hard and time consuming. So we have discussed about the different processes. You have seen how many steps are involved in the process. So it is quite hard and it is quite time consuming and it requires high cost. So developing a computer program and installing it and preparing an app, all this requires a lot of money. So it is highly costly. So this is about computer assisted learning. Hope you are clear. Now let's proceed into the next method, which is problems based learning. So problem based learning, it is an effective method to train the minds of pupils by confronting them with real problems and giving them the opportunity and freedom to solve it. So basically here we are encountering the students with a particular problem and developing their skills in order to solve the problem and bring about critical thinking abilities. So it uses approaches to teaching and learning that develops meaningful links between theory and practice. So it is basically focusing on applying the theory or applying whatever theoretical knowledge we have applied and bringing it into practice. Let's see the official definition. So we have two definitions which is given by Barrows as well as Albanese and Mitchell. So first let's see the Barrow one. So Barrow defines problem-based learning as the learning that results from process of working towards the understanding or resolution of a problem. And Albanese and Mitchell defines it as an instrumental method of teaching characterized by the use of patient problems as a content for students to learn problem solving skills and acquire knowledge about basic and clinical sciences. So they defined it as a teaching method in which we use the patient problems, and these patient problems are used as learning materials so that the students can develop problem solving abilities and acquire knowledge about the basic knowledge as well as clinical science. Coming to the goals of problem based learning, the goals are construct an extensive and flexible knowledge base. So through here we are constructing an extensive and flexible knowledge base. Foster increased retention of knowledge. So here we are applying knowledge, so there will be increased retention. Develop effective problem solving skills. Develop self-directed lifelong learning skills. Strengthen students' intrinsic motivation to learn. Here the major part is played by students and it increases their motivation level to learn. Acquire the knowledge base necessary to define the health problems of patients. Develop an ability to identify relevant health problems. An appreciation for individualized nature of physical, biological and behavioral mechanism. Here when we solve the problems of a patient, we are applying all the levels like physical, biological and behavioral mechanism. So these are the different goals of problem based learning. Now let's see the principles of problem based learning. The principles are: the student is the focus of educational program, not the teacher, nor the curriculum. So that is why here we go for a student-centered learning method. The development of students' learning capacities is emphasized. Basically here we focus on improving the problem solving ability of the students, and that is what this principle says. The next principle is the problem presented in the curriculum triggers the students' ability to analyze, to understand and to solve. Here a problem is presented to the student and it increases their ability to analyze the problem, to understand the problem as well as to solve the problem. Cooperation with others and importance of communication is emphasized. Basically it is a group activity, and here in order to solve the problem of the patient, students must communicate with each other as well as they should cooperate with each other, and it improves the IPR skills. Attention is given to the development of practical skills, the development of analytical as well as creative thinking skills. Basically, here we focus on solving a problem, and that is why it focuses on analytical, critical as well as creative thinking skills. The development of self-directed learning ability and integrated application of knowledge and skill within practice are encouraged. So this we have discussed earlier. It requires certain things like self-directed learning, small group learning, critical thinking skills, integration of different parts of curriculum. We have discussed this earlier. We said that it is self-directed, or the students are motivated to learn themselves. It is done in a group, so it is a small group learning. In order to solve the problem of the students, they should critically analyze the different situations, and that's why it promotes critical thinking skills. And the student has to integrate the different things they have learned in the curriculum in order to solve the problem of the patient. That's why we have integration of different parts of curriculum. Coming to the process of problem-based learning. Initially, carefully constructed problems are presented to a small group of students. Here we will have pre-structured problems of a particular patient, and this is presented to a small group of students who will function as a group. Problem usually consists of a description of a set of real life phenomenon. A case scenario is presented here or a set of information from a real life phenomenon is presented here. The task of student is to discuss these problems, find intelligent explanation for the phenomenon, and this is to be done using their prior knowledge. So they have to discuss on the case scenario, identify the problems of the patient, and bring out with intelligent explanations for the phenomenon. Based on the problem, the learners develop a set of hypotheses. So once they critically analyze the problem, they will prepare a set of hypotheses that this could be this, or this is affected by this. Such hypotheses are framed. The learners identify the cause of the problem by strategic inquiry, by discovering, construing, discussing, selecting, and stating the specific problem or questioning. So once this is done, they have to they identify the problem or the cause of the problem by different techniques like discovering, construing different options that are available, discussing among themselves about their viewpoints, selecting and stating the specific problem or the question. The next phase include collecting, organizing, comparing and judging significant information in the light of defined problem. So once they have defined problem, they will go for extensive review of literature and they will collect, organize, compare and judge significant information so that it can be made into useful information for this particular case scenario. Exploring the problem and framing some possible solutions. So once they have extensive review of literature, they further explore the problem and frame possible solutions that can be used. Drawing preliminary conclusion for further exploration and study. Once all this is done and possible solutions have come across, a preliminary conclusion is done. Again, it is to be further explored and studied. Evaluating findings and establishing a conclusion is the next step. Finally, summarization with the possibility of a further study is done. That is, at the end, we summarize the case scenario and we say that this could be the probable solution to this, and another study can be done in order to further explore this, or a recommendation is to be done for a further study. So in short, if we say the process of PBL has different things like a problem. A problem is usually a situation or a scenario. Hypothesis, which is the need assessment that is done by the students. It is identified issues, clarifying learning needs, etc. Resources. So resources, basically we use the resources in order to plan what to do. Reporting back. So learning from the study and notifying information. So the case scenario is being studied properly and we modify the information. Action plan. So action plan basically involves resolution of the problem through care or an action plan. So that was about the nutshell of PBL. Now let's see the students' role in a problem-based learning. So students, they assume high degree of responsibility because it is a student-centered learning. It is a self-directed learning. So students have high degree of responsibility. Take initiative in using appropriate assessment of their progress and be able to present demonstrations of their learning achievements. So through the PBL, students have to critically analyze how much they have progressed, or they should be able to present or demonstrate these different skills they have achieved. Now let's see the group members' role. The group members' role include active participation in the case scenario, active listening, asking questions, answering questions, giving information and making decisions. Now coming to the facilitators' role. The facilitators' role include help the group to establish itself, that is initial form of group formation, setting norms for the group function. So once a group has been formed, the teacher has to prepare certain rules and regulations that is to be followed within the group, ensuring group trust and attending to group dynamics. So basically a teacher has to create a group and ensure that the group is functioning well. A teacher need to know when to intervene and when to sit back and let the students resolve their own difficulties. So many times it is a main problem that teachers face while carrying out such interventions. So they don't, or they should restrict themselves from intervening unnecessarily, because the major part is to be played by the student and it is they who have to solve the problem. So she should sit back, allow them to do the work, and if the situation really needs her intervention, she can intervene. Assessment of learning and facilitate achievement of goals. So in between she have to assess how much the students have progressed, how much they have learned, or do they require any help from the side of the teacher. So that is about the facilitator's role, and this is all about problem-based learning. Now let's see the next type, which is self-directed learning. So self-directed learning, here information of one concept presented according to a few objectives in a format that allows skipping of a section if the student has previously mastered the content. So basically here we will have a self-directed learning module. So you might have seen many modules like the BLS or the ACLS module. So it is described in different chapters, like initially we may have a anatomy, physiology of the respiratory system, the cardiovascular system, etc. and all, and then we will further progress into the initial steps, into the resuscitation part, defib part, and finally about the post-resuscitation care. So each unit will have aims as well as objectives to be achieved by the student at the end of the learning, and here the main advantage is that if a student knows well about a particular objective or a particular content, she can skip it and progress into the next area. It is enabled by self-checks, that is pre-test as well as post-test of the students' learning throughout the self-contained packet. So in this module, before each lesson they will have a self check in the form of pre-test, and after each learning module they will have a post-test through which the students can make sure that they are well versed with the content. It can be used for a single class period, an entire course, or as enrichment or remedial learning. So either they can use as a single class in the curriculum, or entire curriculum can be planned accordingly. One of the example is many of the online courses which you have attended might be in the form of a self-directed learning module where you have to proceed by yourself, or you can use self-directed learning as an enrichment, as an additional thing to the curriculum, or remedial learning for overcoming the lapses that have come across in the studies. The advantages include, it is very useful for adult learners because they can skip through what they have known. They are very picky learners. They don't have much time to waste. So they should get whatever they intend to learn. That is the characteristics of adult learners, right? So it is very useful to them because they can focus on the areas they require for the learning. It gives students control of when and where learning will acquire. So the students can learn on their own time, on their own pace. Learning can occur without presence of a teacher. So we don't require a teacher here. The students can progress by themselves. It is flexible to the learner's needs. So they can learn according to their learning needs, or according to what they want to learn. It is good for teaching psychomotor skills. So these are the different advantages of self-directed learning. Now let's see the disadvantages. The first thing is that students may procrastinate and not complete in a timely manner. So usually they'll feel I'll progress or they'll make plans, and then since there is nobody to supervise, there will be skipping of plans, and the course won't be completed on a timely manner. It is costly. You will have to prepare all these learning modules. It is very costly and it is time consuming. It consumes much of the time in order to prepare this particular module. Now let's see about self-instructional module. So it is defined as self-contained written material which can be used by the students for self-learning. It is very similar to self-directed learning. Here also we have a written material which can be used by the students for self-learning. Self-instructional module is an accepted strategy for self-learning and enhancing the knowledge. The purpose is to feed relevant knowledge to the students from multiple angles by providing proper quality material. So here a particular problem is discussed from multiple angles by providing a really good handout or a really good material for learning. Coming to the characteristics of self-instructional module, the different characteristics are: it is self-explanatory. The content is self and it is very clear. One can learn on oneself. It is self-directional. It is presented in a form of easy explanation, illustration and learning activities. It guides, instructs and regulates the learning process and performs the role of a teacher. So basically the module itself is a teacher, and it is presented in a form that it is very well explained, it is very well illustrated, and it has got different learning activities in order to get feedback about the learning of the students. It is self-motivating. The material arouses curiosity, raises problems and knowledge to a familiar situation and makes learning meaningful. So it is self-motivating. Each session will have its own objective. So the students would be motivated to learn and acquire the skills that has been prescribed within the particular module. It is self-evaluating. It provides questions, exercises and other activities for self-evaluation and checking one's learning progress. So there are intermittent feedback, post-test and pre-test through which the students can evaluate themselves. Self-learning is yet another characteristics of self-instructional module. It gives directions, hints, references and hence motivate a student to learn. It is self-contained, so it is self-sufficient. The student does not have to hunt for additional sources. So it is prepared in a very good quality that everything is available within the module and students do not have to hunt for further knowledge. Let's see about the phases of constructing a self-instructional module. The first phase is preparatory phase. In the preparatory phase, the facilitator or the expert has to refer to input concerned with collection of data regarding target groups, their characteristics, job responsibilities and learning needs. So here the expert has to consider who is going to learn this particular knowledge, what is their basic knowledge level or basic cognitive level, what is their job requirement or what do they need out of this learning. So it is based on this the entire module is to be prepared. This information serves as baseline for construction of the learning material. So that was regarding the first phase, which is preparatory phase. Now the second phase, which is implementation phase. In implementation phase, it refers to process comprising the program definition, preparation, production, assessment, monitoring of activity and utilization of instructional material. So once the need assessment has been done, the preparation part, the validation part and the utilization part, that comes under implementation phase. And the last phase is evaluation phase. This phase is a process of arriving at a judgment and decision based on a careful appraisal of all aspects of the trained performance. So here we will come to a conclusion whether the SIM was prepared adequately, whether it was used adequately, whether it is helpful, and this information provides concrete and precise idea about developing a further SIM. So it can be utilized for preparing a new self-instructional module. So hope you are clear with what is self-instructional module and the different phases involved in self-instructional module.